Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Hier lernst du alles rund um das Thema Investor Relations, Fundraising und Kapitalmarkt. Mein Name ist Julia Stötzl und ich bin Gründerin und CEO von Investor Relations Beratung Unicorn. Unicorn ist davon eine Mission, Investor Relations für die nächste Generation einzuführen. Das bedeutet ganz konkret die Integration von digitalen Medien wie zum Beispiel LinkedIn, Podcast, Newsletter in die klassische Kapitalmarktarbeit. Mehr Informationen zu Unicorn, aber auch zum Podcast findest du unter unicornconsulting.com. Und jetzt wünsche ich euch viel Spaß beim Zuhören.
Try to focus on only a few investors in the very first beginning. Try to focus on not too many angels. Take a look on your advisory board. Start very early with advisories where you have, for example, a guy which knows the business.
I'm very excited to have Wolf Schlachter with us. Wolf is a serial entrepreneur as well as an investor himself, so we can talk about the both sides of that coin. And at the moment, or currently, he is CEO of DXPE, which is a company in the mobility space. But maybe you can actually better explain what you're exactly doing. I think it's a very exciting space. I also tried to scroll through your LinkedIn, and there's so many positions that you're having. You had so many interesting positions. So maybe you can just give us a brief wrap up of what your career path led you to, what you're doing today.
So thanks, Julia. Great to meet you. I followed you as well, of course, on LinkedIn and also what you did. So I think it's a little bit similar to that what I'm doing, but you are in a different business or came from a different business. So, well, yeah, I'm in the mobility space since more than 10 years. Have founded lots of companies before I was working in the telco segment and did a lot of IoT, so Internet of Things and sort of things. So it was for me quite easy to jump into a new space, which was built roughly, I would say, in 2012, 2011, when the first, let's say, even charging network for EVs came up, mainly driven by Elon Musk and some other, I would say, crazy guys. So I was one of these guys who started very early. And yeah, I have a company built called DXPE Management. We are roughly 50 people worldwide working on e-mobility and mobility activities, not only e-mobility. Also, we have some topics like hydrogen and multimodal things for, let's say, car sharing companies and so on. So we are quite well working, especially on OEM products or with OEMs, with utilities, fleet operators, and also charge point operators, so CPOs. And so that's what we are doing worldwide, building new networks for companies on the one hand side. So charging opportunities in New Zealand, in China, in US, or even in Europe. So some of you may know, or you know my history, or you mentioned also my, I would say, the lots of entries on job description I have on LinkedIn. Yeah, I was one of the founders of Ionity, the world's first high-power charger network operator. I was startup CTO, so I helped to ramp up the company, and that was one of the activities from the past where I was deeply involved. Additionally, well, I launched lots of other startups over the years. Let's say it like this. Wherever I've seen a kind of a greenfield approach or even some, how to say, black space, which has not been covered yet. So I try to fill this with, let's say, startup entrepreneurs, or even I helped some guys to ramp up in the business or move on. So it's kind of incubator activities on the one hand side, not only technical from the technical perspective, also from the commercial. So, well, of course, you're always looking for new investors. And so far, I gonna help these companies to make the first seed, as well as funding rounds in the ABC series, whatever we have. And I started roughly 6 years ago. So my target was to implement at least one new startup per year in this space. So I reached this. Yeah. So last year I launched together with the founders in Copenhagen a company called FlexiCharge. They got a first investment before Christmas. So it was just announced on LinkedIn yesterday. So that's part of my game. Yeah, especially in the sector, it's not easy, as you know, in general. Having lots of let's say talking rounds and until you get some money, especially in the $1 million segment, then it's getting a little more complex to find the right investors. And yeah, that's good to hear that it works. And yeah, that's part of my business. Beside, let's say, the typical consultant and execution business we are doing with DXP management, I'm trying to, let's say, even find the right founders for the right, let's say, even products or business approaches.
I got so many questions just from this like brief introduction. Maybe we'll start with that one. Like, how did you get into entrepreneurship? Like, what triggered your interest in becoming this kind of making greenfield approaches possible and doing the impossible? Being in 2012 in the electromobility space was very early, right? So you need to have some sort of vision.
The business from my side on the entrepreneurship was starting much earlier than 2012 because I became a lawyer in 1996, something like that, and then I decided to move into IT. And so I was more interested in, I would say, the big things. So I was building some websites for FC Bayern Munich and so on. So I was a child of the generation zero, say it like this, building large content management systems and so on. So I came from the, I would say, more software-driven side and building, let's say, new companies. This was the very first beginning when the first, let's say, media agencies came up in the e-commerce and this business quite early, and that was I would say one of the reasons for me to even to try this approach again after years, because I founded some companies in Germany, especially in the telco segment, and suddenly I was part of Telefonica, so one of the largest telco giants worldwide, also doing some M&A activities for them. So buying a company called O2, which all know,
It's a small
for
one.
roughly something like, a small one, something like 26 billion euros or something like that. This was the giant company. I was responsible for big, let's say, the top 20, 30 customers worldwide. So Mercedes-Benz or the telcos were trying to, how you say, cover all the activities under one roof. And then I decided in 2006 to leave because, well, you have seen at this time the SIM card was the holy ghost or the holy grail or the holy cow. And so I was not really focusing on selling SIM cards or something like that. So I tried to carve out, because my customers were already looking for, let's say, manufacturing, which is more intelligent. So we are talking about things like connected industry, and that was machine, cars, whatever you could imagine, sensors, which has been connected. And that was the reason why I left and built my own company. And so I tried to do my own entrepreneurship. On the other side, I have seen that especially big giants from manufacturing, like Bosch, like Siemens, or automotive, they struggled on building, let's say, these small, how you say, fast boats or speedboats. And I tried to, how you say, overtake the speedboats with the super tankers. And that was a reason why I was doing a lot in this segment already in the early times. So I had a project with Bosch where we speeded up a company called Bosch Connected Devices and Solutions, ugly word. Now it's Bosch AI.
Sounds better.
So
Sounds more sexy.
started from the very scratch. Yeah, of course. But this was the very first beginning of my activities in the space, even to become an entrepreneur, helping also some founders to push into the business and helping with technical expertise on one hand side and also commercial business models. You don't have to build them always from, how you say, from the scratch. So it's best you have already things in mind. And I must say, I even copied some things from existing business models that when it works there, it also works there, because the behavior of the customers and so on is quite similar. And so I would say not everything has been, how you say, well, it's coming from the scratch or been well, you don't have to experience to build the wheel twice if it's already existing.
Maybe let's dive into a little bit more into the space where you're currently at, which is a kind of electromobility, mobility in general. How would you say the space is evolving at the moment? I mean, we hear obviously in the headlines a lot, Elon Musk has been driving the space obviously quite forward. electric cars are doing rather well. How would you see the space evolving? Like, what's your outlook? If like also maybe companies want to found in that space, is it a good space to enter at the moment as a young company maybe? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yes, of course. So you have seen that especially the market has grown over the last 10 years, especially in Europe, the last, let's say, 5 to 6 years. I would say there was a kind of a movement coming up even in COVID times. You've heard about the, let's say, special governmental fundings for cars, for installing wall boxes and so on in the public space as well. So building large charger parks with governmental support or even commercial support from investors. So this is, I would say, the current situation we had over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 years. Now we are in 2024. You have seen that some companies struggled, especially on the, let's say, hardware side. So we have a kind of a similar, how we say, development, what we have seen even in the IoT world years ago. When we started with sensors, we have seen lots of hardware manufacturers for sensing data, getting data, how we say, ready. That happened in the industry as well. You have seen some insolvencies from big players in the last 2 years or pre-insolvency cases. They were bought by players on the hardware side, and the same you see also on the software side coming up a little bit, because to operate a charger, for example, you need a software stack, and the software stack must fit to the charger. On the other side, the charger needs the software to communicate with cars. And well, you could imagine if you're focusing on hardware which is only wall box orientated, the charging is different than if you want to operate a large charger park with 6 chargers and 350 kilowatt chargers, where you want to, for example, have a dynamic pricing. You want to have a plug-in charge, so you don't need any charging cards or RFID cards anymore for authentication and so on. So it makes it more smart. So we are talking about smart charging functionalities which are coming up. And that's, I would say, also a game changer a little bit because the requirements on these software players are changing. And so you see some specification or more and more going into the operators are moving into a little bit more specified business model where they feel better than, so I say, well, the one are more focusing on OEMs because they have high, I would say, requirements. The others are moving more in the broad market, so covering lots of chargers, not too much complexity. So it's a little bit like a pyramid, what you see, what happens in the market. Some are focusing on the, I would say, the few top customers, and others on the broad, let's say. And on the OEM side, these are also quite interesting things. Well, Tesla made the game, but we have seen some also, let's say, competitors coming up also from the Chinese market. Maybe heard about all the discussions with BYD and some other players, Li Auto, which no one knows or not much people knows. So the pressure is going on the European market, and as well, it's written that big German OEMs are struggling a little bit more. Well, of course, they are struggling because they have to transform the business from the combustion into the electric vehicle part, and that takes time simply. So it's not
Are there
that,
any German players
yeah.
at all that are relevant at the moment? I mean, I know that BMW and Volkswagen, they do have some electric version of their cars, but are there any real like competitors, like serious ones that could compete with like a Tesla?
I would say yes. If you compare it with what, for example, Hyundai Kia has arranged, but not in Germany, I would say from the technology side, even especially we're talking about some activities like in the future, maybe smart charging or even autonomous driving. There you can see that the German OEMs are not behind Tesla. So Elon was trying to solve everything without LiDAR systems. So or radar is nice, but LiDAR is better. So recognition of people and whatever. Maybe you have seen also some accidents in the US with a Tesla, which was driving in the tunnel, trying to turn left or something like that. Well, this could happen, but from that point of view, you see that especially German OEMs, so BMW and also Mercedes has done a great job. So they can build cars, of course, but what we have in Germany, I would say, it's a kind of a phenomenon. We are not compatible with that what happened in China, especially on the mid-size cars. So smaller cars with, I would say, cost side for the end customer of 25,000 euros or something like that. These cars are not really existing. So the business starts on the German market maybe with 35, 36,000. If you take the ID.3 or something like that from Volkswagen, that's the beginning of the range. Upwards, it's open end, say it like this. But that's a pain, I would say. The mass market is not yet addressed. The higher the prices, I would say, the more functionalities you have, the more competitive are the German OEMs together with or competing Tesla, I would say. And from that point, yeah, that's a topic where we have lots of discussion currently. We are talking still on how you say technical openness or technology openness in Germany. It helps, but we already had this discussion 5 years ago. So we are, I would say, a little bit struggling on the execution of the projects, and this simply takes time because we have these, let's say, problems on transformation.
How green would you actually say are electric cars, right? I mean, I'm not an expert by no means, but like you hear that, the energy needs to be green. So then you have maybe energy from coal, from atom, how do you say, like nuclear energy. Is that really green? I don't know. And then also you have
Yeah,
the issue of like recycling the battery, right? Like you have like certain like
yeah,
resources maybe going back into the ecosystem, whatever. So
yeah.
what's your thoughts on that one?
So I would say that especially electric cars are, from that point of view, extremely green. If you take a look into, let's say, what especially the German OEMs are trying to build up from that point. And it's not only building a car, you have to provide an ecosystem. And that's what I preach already years ago. And the ecosystem starts with, how you say, you take the first screw, you pick up the lithium and the cobalt no longer, because, well, in the future we will be less dependent on these, let's say, raw materials. So we are building an ecosystem, or let's say a roadmap, which even covers, let's say, the second life of batteries in the future. And what you mentioned, so there are some solutions which I would say the big OEMs are working on. They haven't fulfilled all of the pieces of the cake yet, but they are working on this. So I make an example from the battery storage, what you mentioned, the second life batteries. Let's take the Audi case. Maybe you have seen some Audi charging hubs in Germany. So in Nuremberg, there's a famous one, a station where you have a rooftop and you have a launch up on the first floor. On the ground level, you can charge your cars with high speed. The batteries they are using is nothing else than storage. They are old batteries from recycled cars, and they are using them for storage. So they don't have to use the grid 100% all the time. So they have a PV, photovoltaics on the top or on the roof, and so it's, I would say, more than green, because you generate the energy from the sun and can use it. You can store the energy if you need it. You can take it from the grid, or you can take it from the battery storage. So these are the solutions which are coming up, where I would say that even these, let's say, second life is not the end of the game. So we are talking about third life as well. So we will see also some battery recyclers. So they took out, let's say, the raw materials, or bring the raw materials back in the ecosystem again. So well, it's kind of a cycle system what you have built up. And so far, it's a little bit different to that what you see right now with the combustion engine, where, well, pieces of the car will be taken out. I would say that the recycling quota is much higher on an electric car than on a let's say a combustion engine from that point of view. Of course, you have a higher, let's say, energy well, the production requirement from the very first beginning, and it takes a little bit more kilometers. That the amortization between a combustion engine and an electric car is on a equal level. But from that point of view, I would say that EVs are much greener than the image looks like from outside.
Okay, got it. Well, as this is a capital markets podcast, I do want to definitely touch upon kind of the fundraising part of things. You alluded to that one of your companies just recently raised, what was it, seed, you said? Seed round? Seed.
Yeah, seed round.
Maybe
Yes.
give us a bit of a background on the fundraising process, but also maybe what has been challenges. I mean, the market is really not easy at the moment for a lot of companies. I know a lot of companies that actually go bankrupt at the moment. You know, they cannot find funding. Everyone is really struggling, maybe has to rise on lower valuations. So the market is very tough for many industries. What are your tips?
It's not only the mobility, as we have seen, also on the energy side, where you normally would say, "Hey guys, energy we have to work on, especially there." Or well, you have seen the activities yesterday with Tier. So Tier has saved itself by getting another, let's say, buying another company and try to grow with these activities. Well, this is quite critical. You can see this well positive on a short level, but long term, I have some I say not the best feeling on that. It's well, you have also seen some startups in the mobility space like Sono Motors, which try to make some how to say funding rounds on the crowd side. So crowdfunding, I'm not an expert, or I'm not, well, I would say I'm not an expert on that, but I'm not feeling well what I've seen in the past. And that is not a good move, I would say. And I say my feeling was not too bad that I already said before that it will not work, especially if you want to build cars or want to move into the mobility space. From that point of view, it makes sense to take a look on better investors and not trusting on too many small investors. So my I would say my approach is a little bit different. What I've seen or what I can I would say recommend to all the listeners, try to focus on only a few investors in the very first beginning. Try to focus on not too many angels, because at the end of the day, well, angels can help you to open some doors, but at the end of the day, you as an investor or sorry, as a founder, you have to take a look on which are my key players where I can game with or can move forward. And from that point of view, I would say take a look on your advisory board. Start very early with advisories where you have, for example, a guy which knows the business, which is, how you say, an experienced guy working in the business since many years, has the experience on specific, let's say, strategies. On the other side, you need someone who's doing, how to say, supporting the founders on the finding the right investors. On the other side, you need some guys which are technical on a level to understand this is the right way or this is the wrong way from the technology perspective. And as I said, we are also doing some M&A advisory on the tech activities. So we see already on DXPE side what investors are looking for at the moment. So of course the ARR, so annual recurring revenue is a topic which is always in discussion if you want to have some money already in place from a larger investor. So you will always have come in these, or you're always running on these discussions. So from that point of view, if you have a great advisory board, it helps you. I've seen, to be honest, if the board is really good, you can even make a little bit more money or get some more money because the trust is much higher than if you take someone who has a no name in a or not fitting from the industry side. Um, and that's one issue you should keep an eye on from the very first beginning if you try to start. On the other side, what we have seen, the pre-works you have to do, especially on pitch decks, are becoming more complex. So what we have seen over the last years, at the very first beginning, I've seen some decks with 10 pages or something like that. Now the investor wants to know a little bit more. They want to know a little bit more about the market, what's going on. They want to know a little bit more about competitors, if existing. So it was much earlier at the very first beginning to, I would say, raise 1 million than today. And the complexity, I would say, is especially in the million segment you start with. It's more complex than getting 10 million or something like that from my side. And even if you work too much with angels, this will not really help. And if an investor sees, well, you have 15 angels somehow in your organization, that's not the best move at the moment to get, let's say, a good funding. So try to focus on, let's say, VCs which are looking for specific target markets. So energy, mobility, combining them, even bridging these markets. If you have such kind of solutions where you can, I would say, deal with different type of customers, then it's much easier. Because if you're only, how you say, holistic on one way walking, and you don't have I would say, the opportunity to move right and left of the motorway to grab some new flowers or some pick up some new opportunities. That makes it a little bit more complex from my side at the moment to raise money. So additionally, from the technical side, well, you have to provide, I would say, a software as a service if you're going into this gaming of the industry. So it doesn't matter if you're on an energy company or mobility. It must be a kind of as a service model what you're offering to end customers. And if it's B2B or B2B2C or B2C, I think it doesn't matter, but your platform must be ready to scale. And that's what especially our investors are looking for at the moment. And especially if you're working with American investors or coming from the States, these guys are more focusing on the platforms and less on the business models. In Europe, it's a little bit different. They are looking more on business models. On technology is not that deep dive what they are doing. But what we learned from the big ones, so talking with BlackRock, with KKR, and the big stars, I would say, in the US, they are more and more focusing on technology-driven business models which are scalable. So that's, I would say, one of the most important things what we learned over the last 3 years. Even when American investors came to Europe or into German market, they were looking a little bit more on the technology side, and that means how is your platform been scaling up, or do you have a cloud base, of course, and AI is definitely a topic, and data. Hey, how is your raw data structure or looks like, and how can you provide these services or monetize these technical, let's say, functionalities? That's, I would say, the one of the main topics what I have in my daily discussions, even with big companies or big investors, or even mid-sized investors. They're also a little bit focusing on that already.
As we're coming to the end of the interview, I have one last question. Maybe you can just give us like your 10 cents on, I mean, you are yourself an angel. I'm also an angel, but I think a lot of angels are at the moment also holding back, right, to see how the market is evolving. What is your outlook for 24 as from an investor perspective?
So from the investor perspective, I would say that especially there are some opportunities coming up in the third and fourth quarter. We see, as you said, some, how you say, reservations, and also the cycles of signing contracts is getting longer. So I would say, make an example. When you have started to make a funding round before the invasion into Ukraine, so in 2022, 2021, it was like this, that you has to, how I say, visit roughly 100 customers or potential investors, sorry, say it like this, to get I'll say a ticket or 2 tickets. Then they say, okay, we sign it. And these, let's say, cycles were from the timing not so long as it is today. So I would say you need at least, if you want to sign a contract with an investor, I would say you need at least 6 months, even 9 months. It depends on well, if you have a big investor thinking about an investment, then it takes roughly up to 9 months to get the money on your banking account at the end of the day. So it's the timing is critical, but what I see right now, I would say that especially in the summer times, especially in August, what I've seen even in this year and last year in 2023, that there are lots of investors taking, let's say, the summertime to take a look on, hey, how's the portfolio being organized and what is missing, or what can we carve out, or where we do have some, how you say, black spots where we have to do something. That's exactly what I've seen, that these deals which has been announced right now or over the last weeks have all been made or been prepared in summertime. So at least you have to calculate something like 6 months, and that's a little bit different than before. The realization times are getting more longer than expected. That means for an investor, on the one hand side, well, extended runways, of course, and they also try to deal with the startups, of course, on the valuation. That's more coming up. So I would say if you take out a valuation of a company of 10 million, something like that, they try to trade you down to maybe 7 or 6.5, something like that. So this is typical and normal, especially in the mobility space, what we have seen. But we have also seen some good deals in the past. So if you have a company with a valuation of 25 million, if you have the right business model, and you find a major investor which jumps in at the next investment round, then we are talking about 80 million valuation or something like that. That's possible. But it's a long way, I would say. And from the investor side, it's always, well, you have closed the deal and you have to prepare the next one. That's, as you know as well, it's always how you say, you're like a little bit in the hamster wheel to ramp up the business.
Got it. That was super insightful. Thank you so much. It was so interesting to see, on one hand, the investor side of things, but also the entrepreneur side of things, operator side of things. So thank you so much, Wolf, for your insights, and wishing you all the best for your business.
Thanks a lot, Julia. It was great to talk, and hopefully gonna see you soon again in Berlin somewhere, in our office or at your office. Take care.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, wir sind jetzt auch schon wieder am Ende des Podcasts angekommen. Ich hoffe, dir hat diese Episode gefallen. Wenn du Hilfe brauchst bei irgendwelchen Kapitalmarktthemen oder digitalen Investor Relations Themen, dann melde dich gerne unter unicornconsulting.com und buch dir einen ersten freien Consulting Call. Wir würden uns ebenfalls darüber freuen, wenn du uns auf Social Media folgst, zum Beispiel YouTube, TikTok, Instagram oder auch LinkedIn, oder wenn du einfach einen Like da lässt. Ich wünsche euch alles Gute und bis zum nächsten Mal. Eure Julia. Ciao.